Media here on Giving Tuesday, and I am so excited to have Edie Clark with me. She is a remote video producer, YouTube extraordinaire, and I'm just going to let her talk all about YouTube. Because for our viewers and listeners, it really is well, first of all, YouTube is the second largest search engine from what I've heard.
Yep,
Hopefully, correct.
yep,
And,
it
and
is.
so it's Okay, good. So it's nice to hear about how people can build a brand or as an entrepreneur, just build their brand through YouTube. But at first I want to start about how you got started in video production and who Edie is. So welcome. Thank you for joining us, and I'll give you the screen to talk all about everything. But we'll get started with your early days
Excellent.
of video production work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here. This is quite a daunting task that you're taking on for Giving Tuesday, forgetting what day of the week it is. And I appreciate you inviting me on today. The way that I got started was, hey, Robin, the way that I got started back when I was in high school. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life and realized that I was in love with television production and just the art of creating projects, even though I didn't know how to do it. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to be a part of because I was so obsessed with watching TV programs, particularly shows that were on PBS. And I just wanted to be a part of that. And fortunately, I was able to get my first job right out of high school. I was 17 years old and did an internship at the local TV station where I grew up, which was in the US Virgin Islands on the island of St. Thomas, for anyone that's out there, The Rock. And so after I had that experience, and I really had the opportunity of working literally every position short of being on camera. All positions that you could do behind the camera, I did in that internship and the following year and a half that I worked at the TV station. And that was an amazing learning opportunity for me. And it gave me the opportunity to discover that the thing that I liked most out of all of the different jobs that I did was video editing. And back then, in those days, you did not edit on a computer. You actually physically edited tape to tape or reel to reel. So I'm not going to say how old I am, but it was a while ago. And so from there, I ended up working in Hollywood, but on the island of St. Thomas, because back then a lot of programs used to come down to do a lot of their TV shows, and NBC had a pilot that they wanted to do. It was sort of like NBC's answer to Magnum PI. And I had the opportunity of becoming an assistant casting director on that, or casting assistant, sorry, on that program. And that then introduced me to sort of the Hollywood side of things. And from there, I went off to school. First, I started going to college in the US Virgin Islands, and then I had the intention of transferring to a school in New York. And I then said, you know what, I kind of know what I'm doing already, so I'm going to forfeit this college thing. And I instead went to a technical school, which then led me to working behind the scenes at post-production companies. So that was what my initial beginning experience was working behind the scenes and working in post-production for post-production companies. Fast forward a number of years, I then left New York and moved to California, where I had the opportunity to work as an assistant to a producer director. I then worked for a couple of networks as a production coordinator. One was for a pilot, and the other one was for the promos that ABC's, back then it was called TGIF, their Thank God It's Friday lineup. So I worked with a company that did all of the promos for that. And then I ended my time in LA working at at Sony Pictures ImageWorks, which was the visual effects division of Sony Pictures. And there I worked as the art department manager, which basically was sort of like the producer of the art department. So I kind of was like the liaison between the art department and the visual effects supervisors and producers. When I came back to New York, I decided that I wasn't going to do production anymore because it really at the time wasn't as prevalent here, at least not the visual effects aspect of it. So I, by accident, sort of went into the .com world and worked for an internet up and coming internet company that unfortunately ended up going bust. And I was their digital production manager. And then from there, did some odds and ends and some other things that sort of took me away from production. And then back in 2012 or 2013, I decided that I wanted to get back into production, started my own production company. And my husband and I varied our jobs from doing local commercials for small businesses here in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, for cable. And then eventually I wanted to work more online and became what was known as, I guess, a video virtual assistant. So I basically was an editor for a lot of speakers and doing their speaker reels and things of that nature. And then that then sort of parlayed itself into helping my audience and my clients utilize YouTube. And that was because YouTube was becoming a little bit more prominent with regards to being able to utilize it for business purposes. It was no longer this sort of like, oh, this is where I'm just going to throw up these family videos or these really wonky, cool, funny, things, or, whatever it may have been. It actually was something that a lot of businesses were able to use as a tool to market their services. And it was a slow build. And then by the time I started to discover it and experiment with it, which was like 13, 14, around that time, it was becoming like, okay, we can't ignore YouTube. YouTube is definitely someone that we need to pay attention to. And quickly after that, if any of you remember, all of the other social media platforms never used to dabble in video at all until I believe Facebook was the first one. I want to think it was 2017 that they started, or maybe he started in 2016, started offering videos on Facebook, and then it sort of was a domino effect on all of the other platforms. And now any platform that comes out, it's going to have, if not a prominent default of video, it's going to be a part of it if it's not the prominent purpose of it. So YouTube just became this tool that I could use not only for myself, but that my clients could use as a mechanism to market their services. And that was the key difference that I wanted to offer my clients and my audience versus anyone that wanted to come on and just become a full-time, all year round YouTube creator. Those are people that are usually gamers, or they're people that want to utilize the platform for monetization and for business. They're not doing anything other than their vlog. And so they're going to get paid differently. They're going to get paid through obviously monetizing their channel, and they're also going to get sponsorships and things of that nature. But what I wanted to offer my clients was that there is also another cutout here where you don't have to be a full-time creator. You don't have to compare yourself to a channel that is getting 100,000 views in the first week, if not first couple of days, or who has hundreds of thousands of subscribers or millions of subscribers. You don't need to compare yourself to them, and you don't need to battle it out to try to beat them or do as well as them, because this is a platform that is truly for everyone. And it does not matter what your demographic is. There is a space for you on YouTube. At the end of the day, it just boils down to, what do you want to do? Who's your audience? What do they need? And can you provide that need to them? And then you need to carve out the way that you want to present that information to them. What is it going to look like? How are you going to present it? How often are you going to present it? And once you can figure that out, then you know that it is a platform that you can have success on. I get a lot of people saying to me, well, I want to be an influencer. I want to be able to have a following. Well, you can have a following with 10 people. You don't need to have millions of people that are following you. And furthermore, a lot of people get into the vanity of the numbers and they're like, oh, well, I need to have a certain number of subscribers, especially since I forgot what year it was that it came out where they changed the recommendations for the YouTube Partnership Program, which is the program that allows you to monetize your channel. So therefore, when an ad runs before your video, you can get paid. And they all of a sudden 1 year decided, for valid reasons, decided that they wanted to put some parameters on that. So you needed to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time accrued within a 12-month period, the watch hours. And a lot of people are like, I just need to get to the 1,000 so I can monetize my channel. I really want to monetize my channel. And that isn't the end all be all, because there are channels that can have success with less than 1,000 subscribers. So that just because a channel doesn't have 1,000 subscribers yet doesn't mean that it's not a successful channel, doesn't mean that it doesn't have quality content that's on there. It just means that they don't have 1,000 subscribers yet. And they could have the 1,000 subscribers, but not have the watch hours yet, because that takes a lot of eyeballs watching their content in order for them to hit those marks. So it is a platform that I am and have been for a long time. And if you ask anybody that knows me, they'll tell you that that's all I've ever talked about, is the importance of it. And I've actually sort of bashed them for not focusing any of their attention on YouTube and only focusing on the other platforms. I am not someone that's going to tell you, don't do the other platforms. I am someone that's going to tell you, once you've mastered whatever that other platform is, you do definitely next in line, you do need to add YouTube, because, as Lisa mentioned correctly at the beginning, it is the second largest search engine in the world. And so if you want to get found, that is a great platform for you to get found on. So I recommend everyone just not avoid using YouTube, even if you are someone like me, where you are not comfortable being on camera. When I first started, I was not comfortable and ran from the camera as much as possible. So my first videos were all screen recorded videos. Thankfully, I was always teaching how to use the software or how to, do something on YouTube or whatever. So I didn't need to be in the video. I've seen lately that that's sort of a resurgence, if you will. I'm seeing a lot of YouTube creators talk about being able to have a channel and being able to create content for that channel successfully without ever showing your face. They're called faceless videos. So that isn't an excuse anymore for people to say, well, I can't do YouTube because I'm not comfortable being on camera. That's not a reason to not do it. You can use YouTube literally for any kind of video, and including, like Lisa is showing today, YouTube is now also taking notice of podcasters. So a lot of people are now putting their podcasts not as an afterthought, which used to be the case too, where it was like, oh, I have my, podcast on whatever platform it is, Lisbon or Apple or Google Play, wherever it was, Stitcher. And oh, well, I recorded it in Zoom and I just stripped the audio. So I put that up on where it needed to be. What am I going to do with the video? Oh, let me just toss that up on YouTube. That doesn't really help when you do it that way. If there's not a lot of preparation and thought behind the podcast that you're putting, the video podcast that you're putting up on YouTube, that actually is not beneficial to you. You need to take the same care that you did with the audio. You need to take with the video, because now YouTube is finally embracing video podcasts, and they have a standalone page for their podcast. And anyone that has a really huge podcast can attest to that, but it's now taken a lot more seriously. So if you are someone that is doing an audio podcast, I would recommend consider doing a video podcast, stripping the audio, doing what you do best with the audio piece, and then making sure that you repurpose the video aspect of it as well. Just a thought. But yeah, that's
Well,
definitely an important thing to do.
yeah, well, that was a great overview. So thank you so much, because you're right. Like when people they say, "Oh, well, that about being on camera," no, I don't want to be on camera, and so, but now there are other options as well. Now, so YouTube is just well, it's an awesome platform to grow your business and to grow your
Mhm.
brand. Now, for the person who's watching and needs to set up a YouTube video, what are the first steps they need to follow as far as camera setup, computer software
Right.
that you would advise to them to get started?
Well, I'll answer it in two ways. One, you don't need to go out and buy anything extra. Chances are, if especially post COVID, we all have webcams. So you can use, I'm using my webcam. I'm sure Lisa's using a webcam. And so that is a camera that you can use to create your videos. Everyone has fairly up-to-date smartphones, which have brilliant cameras on them as well. So I'm a proponent, and my channel advocates for using the equipment that you already have. The only thing that I would recommend purchasing are your microphones. I have a USB microphone. It's an Audio Technica AT2020 that I've had since I started my business. And then I have invested in lighting, mainly because of my office, where it is, it's fairly dark. So I need to have lights on me. So that's, other than that, if you can film outside, if you live somewhere where it's, 10 hours a day sunshine, and you can be in front of a light source, then that's all that you really need. But I will say that before you worry about or concern yourself about the equipment that you're going to use, the number one thing that you need to do is make sure that you are clear on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. So it's great to say that you want to create a YouTube channel. I delve a little deeper. Why do you want to create that channel? What is it that you're going to talk about on that channel? Who are you targeting on that channel? What are the things that they need? What do you want them to do after they've watched your video? These are really important clarity questions that you need to be clear on, because if you're not, you're going to be creating content. And I did this, so I'm speaking from experience. You're just going to end up following, okay, you're seeing what all these people are doing. Okay, well, let me do something like that. And then you do your video, and then it's missing a lot of things because you didn't know who you were targeting. You didn't know why you wanted them to watch the video. You didn't know what you wanted them to do after they watched the video. When I first started, for the longest time, I didn't have a freebie or a lead magnet, is what they tend to call it, at the end of my video. So I can't tell you how many videos I did that had no way of me turning a view into an email to build on my email list. So you really need to have that 30,000-foot view of what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to accomplish? Don't go out and just create without a game plan. because then you're still at some point you're going to have to do the things that I'm telling you that you should do at the very beginning. So to avoid that, I would make sure that you were truly clear. I wish that I had done that. You were truly clear on exactly what it is that you wanted to do, and then figure out what kind of content you needed to create in order to provide that to your ideal audience, and then start to create the content and have in mind, how often do you want to do this? Are you willing? Are you committed to doing this on a consistent basis, whatever consistency looks like for you? And it is advised that you're doing it weekly. And you should probably do that initially. But then, like right now, I'm not consistent. I do on average 1 to 2 videos a month. My channel is still growing. It's not growing as fast as it grows when I'm doing it every week, but you need to assess what are the goals for your channel? What is it that you want it to do for you? So that's what my recommendation would be.
Well, awesome. That's really good advice as well. And now I would like to talk about YouTube, the platform, as far
Mhm.
as algorithms, growing your audience, because I'm in the YouTube News Creator Program, and we're talking about like, shorts now, and also having videos that might be 10 minutes long. Like, what is your advice or suggestions that you have for someone who might already have a YouTube page and would like to grow their audience, and also become part of the monetization part of it
Yeah.
as well?
I think that a lot of mistakes that sometimes people make, and again, I made this mistake, is assuming that YouTube is there to do everything for you. So, there might be some people that say, well, I do, every week or whatever is consistent for them, upload my videos and I'm not getting a lot of views. Nothing is really happening. I'm not getting a lot of subscribers. So this thing doesn't work. And then immediately then assume that YouTube isn't worth it. YouTube works based on you having a clear understanding, like I mentioned, as to what it is that you want to create and who you're creating it for. Because if there is an audience that is hungry for the content that you're creating, it's not going to get found. If it doesn't get found and therefore it doesn't get views, YouTube isn't going to say, oh, okay, this is a good video. Let me start suggesting it to other people. So in order for you to get the momentum behind your videos, you can do a couple of things. You can, for sure, create shorts. Shorts is definitely a way for people to get, number one, it gets views way faster than long form does. So it doesn't matter if you just started your channel today, or if you've had a channel for a while, you're going to get faster views on your shorts than you would on your long form. But the most important thing that I think people need to bear in mind is once they have uploaded their video onto YouTube, they need to have a marketing plan on how else they plan on sharing that content and letting people know that that video is there. So if you've been doing what you need to do in terms of with your other social media platforms as well as YouTube, and you're building an email list, you definitely want to send out to your email list as frequently as possible that a new video has been uploaded and has just been released, or that this playlist is really important, and you write a blurb about it in your email to let them know, so that you can drive that extremely warm traffic to your YouTube channel so that they can watch your videos. Second, you want to definitely make sure that you are embedding your YouTube videos on your blog. So for every video, ideally, if you can do this for every video that you're posting, create a blog post that is related to the content on there, and then feature that video in the blog post. You can then share that blog post, obviously, on places like LinkedIn. Medium.com is another one, and there might be some other places. If you're ever a guest blogger on anyone's channel, not channel, on anyone's blog, then you want to use that as an opportunity to be able to embed the video on their guest blog as well, because it's going to be a different set of eyeballs that would be getting on there. And then also obviously sharing versions of the video, or sending the video from YouTube to like LinkedIn or to Facebook. And then you want to upload a separate version for like Pinterest or Twitter or things of that nature. So you want to share it on all of the social media platforms that you have a presence on, that your ideal audience is on. You want to definitely share it to your email list, and you want to embed it on your blog.
Awesome. Yes, and it's yeah, as far as sharing that, it's really important, and especially through emails or through your blogs.
Right.
Now, with your business, just take us through a day of Edie Clark, and what you do with helping entrepreneurs brand themselves on YouTube, and to be able to have more exposure and build their brand as well.
Great. I work with my clients in a couple of different ways. Actually, there's three different categories. I work with them on a consulting or coaching basis, and those are clients that are comfortable with the tech aspect. They understand in general the concept of what they need to do. The problem is they don't really know exactly what it is that they need to do. So they want somebody basically to sort of lay out a strategy for them and answer questions that they may have, and sort of walk them through the process of what they need to do. But they're going to do all of the heavy lifting, if you will, on their own. The second way that I work with my clients is they're comfortable filming themselves. And the problem is they don't want to edit, or they can't edit, or they hate editing, or they're like, well, I can take it or leave it with the editing, but the YouTube aspect of it is where I get lost completely. So they can outsource the editing to my team, and the YouTube channel management to my team as well. And then the third way that I work with clients are for those that are, you know what, I really understand that YouTube and video is really important. My problem is I don't have the patience to figure out how I'm supposed to set up my webcam. I know that it's on top of my computer, but I don't, I want somebody to tell me what to do, and sort of to do the heavy lifting for me. And in that instance, that's my remote video production services, where I am their virtual producer and director. So instead of the old school pre-COVID way, was video production companies would go straight to the location of wherever their client was, and they'll do all day recordings of however many videos it is that they need to get filmed on a set and all of that kind of stuff. Instead, it's sort of similar to what we're doing right now. The only difference is I'm using a proprietary software, and I am walking them through exactly what it is that they need to do. We've decided how many videos it is that they want to create, whether it's for their YouTube channel, or it could be for a training course that they're doing, or it could just be a bunch of marketing videos that they want to use throughout the year. It all depends on what they need. And from there, my team and I will edit those videos, and then provide them with whatever the post production would be, which is could be uploading it to YouTube, or it could be handing it back to them because they're going to use it for a course or for marketing purposes.
Cool. Okay. Well, actually, we're going to wrap it up because we have Gerald Moore in our virtual waiting room here with
Excellent.
Mission Fulfilled. It's so cool because actually Gerald does videos on LinkedIn, and he's really good in that space. So
Cool. I'm
it's
going to
awesome.
listen to him then.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Yes. Yeah, and but now in closing, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure. We
You're
we met
welcome.
virtually through Mario Armstrong's program, but I will
Mhm.
definitely be in touch with you to possibly work together, because I want to, like for me, I've been working on, people say go on Instagram and TikTok and build your audience there. But I'm like, well, what about YouTube? And so
Yeah.
I'm working on building our YouTube audience, and also
Oh,
to be able
good.
to stream our radio station live on YouTube, to be able to expand our audience, and also do more events like this with
Mhm.
our first Giving Tuesday social media-thon, all on social media. But it's
Yeah,
been wonderful, and we've been going
thank
since 9
you.
a.m. Yeah,
I
and
know, I take my hat off to you.
oh, well, thank you, thank you. But I've interviewed dynamic individuals, including like yourself, and it's just been a blessing all day. But in closing, I would like for you to share some encouraging words for people who want to get into YouTube and just inspire them a little bit. People who might have been hesitant, to say, "Oh, like kind of what we say. I don't have a camera, I don't have a mic."
Right.
So any words of
Yeah.
encouragement?
Just do it. And I know that sounds easy. It is not something that is for the faint of heart. A lot of people are scared and intimidated about putting themselves out there. I put a lot of fear in me in the very, very beginning, assuming that the second that I posted something, I was going to get all this hate. And that does not actually happen. There might be one or two people that might say something, but it doesn't really matter. The only way that you can get over that fear is to actually do it. And so I think that there are more benefits in the end, that it's really worth it for you to do it. And I am a firm believer in experimenting. So you don't need to necessarily have everything perfect starting off. Just start, do something, play around, and figure out what fits best for you. What kinds of videos do you want to create, and what kind of channel do you want to create, and who you're creating it for? So I say just do it.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, thank you, I can't thank you enough. So we're gonna
You're
bring
welcome, Lisa. This was fun.
Carol. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. And we'll definitely share with our audience your website address and social media handles to be able to work with you and also get some advice about YouTube and all things YouTube.
Yeah.
So we appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Jeff.
Yes.
And
Okay,
thanks,
thank
Sharma. All right. Take care. Bye.
Carol Moore in. So this is our first virtual social media-thon going on here, and I'm going to turn on the camera for Gerald Moore. Hi, Gerald. Hi.
Hello,
How are you?
I am
Hi.
great.
Welcome. Welcome.
And yourself.
So, oh
I was about to
yeah.
say
So go ahead.
just the volume. That's all. So it seems
Oh,
like I'm good with the volume.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're good. So I want to congratulate you on your block party earlier. So how did that go for Giving
It,
Tuesday?
it went well. Had a few
Awesome.
interviews. I've done this
Mhm.
before and I did the
Right.
full 8 hours. So I know how you feel. And I brought it down to 3 hours
Uh-huh.
and I felt exhausted. I had to immediately take a nap.
Okay. Well, actually, this has been really it's been a wonderful day, and I've had so many dynamic people on, like I said earlier, and we've just been highlighting Black journalists, nonprofit organizations, and it's been really exciting. And I actually got the idea from you in our clubhouse rooms. I was like, a block party. I was like, that's really a good idea. But I wanted to highlight journalists, and because I'm a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. And so we've had a mixture of journalists talking about the importance of diversity in newsrooms and then also nonprofit organizations. And your nonprofit is just outstanding. And I want you to tell our audience about Mission Fulfilled and what you do because it, just hats off to you for everything that you do. So I'll let you take the stage and tell us, how did Mission Fulfill start? So and thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
You want the short version, you want the long version.
Well, I would say the long version, due to the work that you're doing. So yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, so I'll give you the intermediate version so then you'll have a chance to speak again. So hello everyone out there. Thank you for inviting me to your Giving Tuesday live. Um, Let me keep this short. So I am Gerald Moore and I'm the founder of an organization called Mission Fulfilled 2030, which is a nonprofit organization focused on inspiring, educating, and activating young Black males in tech and STEM. I launched this organization as a nonprofit in October of 2019 when we got our 501c3 after a 20-year career as a federal government contractor. And what I realized over that time was Black men make up less than 5% of the high tech and STEM workforce. And during my whole career, I didn't see an increase in that number, though I was trying to reach back and bring as many people and expose as many people as possible to the career, especially once I moved from system engineering to cybersecurity engineering. And what I realized is over time that there is no pipeline. So if there's no pipeline, we won't be able to increase that number. And there's no pipeline because right now, Black males have a 50% graduation rate across the board, right? The national graduation rate right now is a little above 50%. So out of that 50%, maybe about 10% of those boys qualify to get into anybody's engineering and computer science program. And based on that number, maybe 5% of those people actually go into STEM. So if we only have 5% now and we only have 5% going in, there definitely needs to be a change because the majority of the employment opportunities in the future are going to be tech and STEM opportunities. So we definitely need to increase that number. And that is what Mission Fulfilled's here to do, to bridge the digital divide, make a difference in Black boys getting in tech and STEM, make a future in the income to make a dent in the income to wealth gap in the future. Because if we have more Black boys participating in tech and STEM, there's going to be an increased income. And if we can engage enough young Black men, and our vision is to impact 100,000 by 2030, and if we can engage enough of them positively, have them earning higher salaries, it'll definitely make a bigger impact in the BIPOC community. And the long-term goal is that if we can make an impact on those young men, we can help impact and build and restructure the Black family by building stronger Black men down the line.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that because it's important. Like I said earlier, it's important what you're doing, and so going. We're going to take a little behind the scenes look at what it's like to operate a nonprofit because we talk about that on our clubhouse room, nonprofit cheat codes. And so, being the founder and executive director and everything that you're doing, just take us behind the scenes of what it's like to operate a nonprofit on the level of yours because the work is tremendous and just wanted to just get kind of give a behind the scenes look of what it's like as a founder and executive director.
Well, for me, it's a little different because I don't have a nonprofit background. Our nonprofit also did not start with um, a big donation, or we don't have a major funder, right? So the organization kind of kicked off because I was talking to a colleague of mine in the gym watching a basketball game, and I was talking to him about a program that I was doing called the Tech School for Black Boys. And there's a story to that too, and how I wanted to take that into the nonprofit space. So with $1,000 donation and just wanting to have an impact in the Black community, I launched the organization. And in 2019, you know what happened in 2020? We went right into the global pandemic. So we launched into that, which was actually probably what catapulted us into being a successful organization, basically starting with no funding and just a dream. So when we went into that and I got the 501c3, fortunately, I've had this long career as an engineer, and I walked away from my job in October of 2019 to run the organization full time. And when I did that, and I was able to do that because with the support of folks that I knew over time, we were able to build a online application to basically launch programming and a learning management system to showcase Black men teaching Black boys tech and STEM. So that's how we kind of got our start. And because we had the talent and not the funding, we were able to kick off something that was national, and not knowing that we would make the impact that we would in such a short time. And over that time, in the 3 years, we've had over 7,000 boys come across our platform, which is amazing in itself. And not having that nonprofit background, I never went into it as I needed to track all of this data. I needed to track all of these different things that the major nonprofits track in order to show the impact. Because I didn't come into it with that perspective. I came into it from a perspective of I have this gift and I want to share it with the world. And I really wasn't thinking about a lot of the other things. And the more I grew in the nonprofit space, and really started learning about what I needed to do as an executive director and founder, and not just, okay, here's this thing I want to do. I'm just going to go do it. I'm not going to worry about anything else and do it. And that was successful to get us launched. But now the business of nonprofit is what's more important in relation to us being able to attract a major donor, um, and our ability to be able to in 2023, our goal is to hire our first employees and continue to expand the organization on a national level. And we've been able to have our program run. Our program is actually run in 4 states now, and disparately, we have young men taking courses all over the country. So we're really a national organization operating on a grassroots bootstrap budget.
Well, congratulations on being able to help 7,000 children. That's truly a blessing. So congratulations to you on that as well, and also to be able to expand.
Thanks.
So you said 4 other states. Is that correct? 4 other states.
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
have
Okay.
programming running in 4 states now. So our main
Okay.
state is Rochester, New York, where we
Mhm.
have a fee. And another thing, being able to get fee for service, right? So
Right.
traditionally, we think about nonprofits being able to do programming, and people on the outside believe that a lot of that programming that nonprofits do should be for free. But the
Right.
nonprofit really can't survive if we don't charge something. And
Mm.
it's also important that you charge something, because to have people committed to do it. So a lot of the programming we do, so say we have this youth tech entrepreneurs program that we run, we would love to offer it for free, and we actually get grants now to offer it for free. But on the independent basis, we can offer it for free and then people don't show up. So, kind of having that fee structure in place actually commits people to do it. And most of the people, if they pay for something, they actually show up. But for our fee for service programming, that works great because we have someone who's sponsoring it for their kids to be able to do it. And the partnership that we have in UPrep High School is really extraordinary in the fact that we get these young men. They're all boys school in Rochester, New York. So each sophomore class member, each young man in their sophomore class goes through this program. And what's really great about it is they actually get school credit for it. So last year we actually did a little over 100 young men, and this year we're going to do about 125 young men. So in this fee for service program, we're really able to make a huge impact and to be able to deliver a course and programming and workforce development that them as a school couldn't afford the budget to like have that program. And the program has been really impactful for them to have an engineer that has my experience to be able to come into the classroom, because most of our schools, even if they offer some type of tech curriculum, traditionally they don't have someone who's come from the field. Traditionally, they have a teacher who went to some type of training course to be able to teach the course. They're not someone who actually comes from corporate, who has real live experience and can give them a more detailed and a pathway of how it's really done from a corporate perspective.
Yes, so and I wanted to ask you about the fundraising part because for people who are tuning in that might have nonprofits or people who want to start a nonprofit, you always talk about getting that Skrilla. So we want to talk about
Yes.
that. And so because I really feel like you're a master networker and you're just really cool with people and not afraid to ask for that money. So kind of take us through your fundraising campaign and as a nonprofit founder and just yeah, just share with us like how you do it to be able to raise money effectively.
So one, I never thought that I could raise money, right? So when I first launched the nonprofit, I left, now mind you, I left my job, I left a high six-figure income to just run this program. And over my 20-year career in the federal government space, I met a ton of people. And I had this huge LinkedIn network, and nobody knew what I did outside of work because I never talked about what I did on LinkedIn because that wasn't the platform to talk about the type of work that I was doing in support of Black boys. So no one knew that I was doing it. So even though I jumped out in 2019 and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing," I've been doing this thing for 20 years now that the majority of people had no clue because on LinkedIn, the purpose for me at that time was to stay employed and always looking for my next opportunity in tech. But when I left my job and I made a post on LinkedIn and I said, "Hey, I'm moving on to the next chapter of my life. I am no longer a cyber security engineer candidate. I am now the founder of Mission Fulfilled 2030, where we inspire, educate, and activate young Black males in tech and STEM. And I will spend the next 50 years plus of my life to create a more equitable tech space for young Black men." So I make this post and I already had the nonprofit stuff set up. I already had a fundraising page, and it went crazy. Like the amount of people that came out and sent me messages and said, "Hey, I always wanted to do something else other than the work that I do. I'm inspired by this, and wow, man, you walked away from this career." And it was just this firestorm of people who embraced me and began to donate. So over the next 6 months, we raised a little over $100,000 from people who just thought that it was this noble thing that I did, all of a sudden, and they wanted to invest in it. And then I realized, okay, Gerald, like you can really do this thing, all right? You can really do it. You can really make a difference. There are people that really care because for a long time I didn't think that there was anybody who cared. But the impact of me making that decision and then making it public, and to be quite honest, Lisa, I am a really private person, and I knew to be able to make this organization work, and I had a couple gentlemen say this to me. They're like, "Gerald, like, in order for this to work, you're going to have to be the face of the organization and get out there and tell your story and then tell how your story transitioned into the nonprofit because you need to inspire, educate, and activate all the young men who grew up like you, who may have not had a chance and may not be in position to overcome the circumstances that you have overcome to be in the position that you're in." And that is the story I wanted to tell, and that was the story of the nonprofit, and that's what got me into the belief system that I could actually fundraise.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up about nonprofit and having your own story because McKeel Shaw, your good friend from wait, were you all friends in elementary school? I know from
Yeah,
childhood.
I met Mike in 8th grade,
Oh, how cute. Okay.
and
Okay.
we went to
Yes.
high school together.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. So people that are watching who are thinking like who are passionate about certain community issues and are thinking about starting a nonprofit, it's very important to be able to tell your story. So I'm glad that you're sharing, how you started and also why you started because it's just I mean there are a lot of people that we want to help. And by having a nonprofit, we're able to do that and make a difference in so many people's lives. So I want to move forward to, okay, so it's called Mission Fulfilled 2030. So where do you see Mission Fulfilled in 2030?
So when I had the vision to launch the nonprofit, I um I knew in order for it to be successful, there had to be a bigger vision of what I thought I could do. And I'm gonna tell a Mike story. So me and Mike were sitting around and we were having a conversation and we were talking about how would we know when we were wealthy. And I said to Mike, when I could write a check for $1 million to something I believe in and not even have to think about it, I would know that I was wealthy. So Mike says back to me, he was like, "Well, Gerald, you're gonna have to come up with a new dream and a new vision because by my account, have you not gotten full scholarships, help young men get full scholarships, about 15 to 20 boys get full scholarships and go to school and major in something tech and STEM?" And I was like, "Yes, I have." So he was like, "How much is a scholarship?" I was like, "On average today, a scholarship is about worth 100,000 to $150,000 and more in some places." So he was like, "By my estimates, you've already raised and written a check for about $1.5 million. So you need to come up with a new idea." So I'm not in the philanthropy space, never thought about it on the philanthropic side of the work that I was doing, but he kind of gave me a, yeah, I did do that, right? Because I never thought about it. So when I thought about Mission Fulfilled, I was like, okay, I know that there's a huge deficit and there's going to be million shortage in high tech and STEM talent by 2030. And there was all of these articles written about how, by 2030, there's going to be this huge tech and STEM deficit. So I was like, what if I can impact 100,000 young black males by 2030? And in my mind, based on that conversation I had with Mike, that I never realized the impact that I was actually having in the space without being in the space. So I said to myself, by 2030, we will have impacted 100,000 young black males and pushed them on the path in tech and STEM. So Mission Fulfilled 2030 is actually past tense because in my mind it's already done. And when we hit that date, we will have impacted 100,000 young black men or more, and then we'll move to our 2040 vision.
Love it. So that I love it. I'm just over here smiling because I want to be able to help, and I see the work that you're doing. So and we'll definitely share your website and social media handles to our audience. But also, I want to go talk about social media because in this day, people are talking about, oh, I'm a social media influencer and I'm an influencer, this and that, but I believe what I call ROI, return on impact, and I really feel that you are doing an excellent job with your LinkedIn platform to have a high ROI, return on impact. So please just share with our audience like how you use LinkedIn to raise money and bring more awareness to Mission Fulfilled, because I think people, we get caught up on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm like, no, there's LinkedIn, and there are a lot of like you're really leaving a lot of money on the table if you don't get on LinkedIn. So kind of give us a crash course on being a nonprofit on LinkedIn.
So it's all about storytelling, right? And you mentioned that. So it's all about storytelling and how you tell your story. And again, I mentioned for a long time, no one knew what I did outside of my work. So Gerald Moore was just a one-dimensional person as a cybersecurity engineer. That's who I was. That's what I did. That's what my LinkedIn profile said. And that's how people viewed me. But once I pulled the trigger, and I was actually, to be quite honest, I was afraid to showcase that other stuff that I did because sometimes being pro-black is considered anti everything else. So I thought that that would impact my ability to gain new opportunities and things of that nature. So I never talked about it. But once I pulled the trigger, then I didn't have to worry about looking for another job. So I was able to change my whole profile from someone who was steadily active to be a cybersecurity engineer to somebody who was an activist and a disruptor in the tech and STEM space, and how we educate young Black males, and to be a voice for young Black males who may not be able to be heard, right? And I had always gone out to schools and spoke and participated in career days, and a lot of people, when they actually heard my story, right? And I'll give you the short version. Like, most people assume, okay, Gerald's an engineer. He was probably a good student. He probably grew up in a nice suburban area. And that's what the people who I worked with thought. But who Gerald is a young man who comes from Title I schools, who never had a Black male educator, who comes from a loving, dysfunctional home, who had a father who was beautifully flawed. And what that led to was a young man who, by 12, had his first police encounter. By 14, got expelled from school. By 15, participated in the Scared Straight program. By 17, I fathered my first child and ended up with full custody of my son when he was 3 months old. Graduated, barely graduated high school with a 1.69 GPA. And then I got an engineering degree. So what Mission Fulfilled became, and how we told the story, is the story of Gerald Moore and how he overcame all of these things to become an engineer. And that is the story. And we have so many young Black men who come up in environments that what the real estate agents call war zones, right? We come up in these areas, and we don't see any way out other than the NFL, NBA, hip hop, selling drugs, and those are the four ways out. But once I made it out on the other side, I needed to come back into that neighborhood and be visible, because Black males make up less than 2% of the public school workforce. I never had a Black male educator from K through 12. So if I never had a Black male educator, how many other young Black males did not have Black male educators and thought that they don't have an opportunity to participate in a high tech and STEM way, or even a professional level, just because those people weren't presented to us? So I started to tell those stories on LinkedIn, and I use the other platforms too. But because I had a 20-year career and I had a vast network of people on LinkedIn, it became a more impactful story. So as I started to filter out my story and started to talk about, this is why young Black men in the inner city aren't successful. This is why this is what we need. This is how I made it. And more people started asking me questions. More and more women started to ask me to talk to their sons. And as people heard my story, and they were like, you need to tell your story. You need to tell your story. So ultimately, I wrote a book, Motivate Black Boys How to Prepare for Careers in STEM, which is the story of how I overcame all of those things to get an engineering degree, and found myself by 26 years old with a six-figure job in Washington, D.C., that I never thought. Coming out of high school, I thought to myself, if I can get a $35,000 job, I would be living the dream, right? Because that's all I thought I could aspire to do, coming from the situation I came from. So being able to tell that story, especially that origin story, and the future story, and the success story, and the leadership story, and the story of how the young men are faring that we're impacting today, and continuing to tell those stories that are in alignment what we were able to do and continually to do. I'm not the only Black male that has made it, right? So now we get other Black men who come out and they tell their story, and I engage with them, and I have them come tell their stories to the boys, to understand that we come in all different shapes, sizes, and flavors. We all have a different story. We all had to overcome something. And this has become what my LinkedIn has become, about educating people on what the plight actually is, because we have a lot of these organizations who would like to help, but they don't even understand the plight of young Black males. So if you don't understand the plight of young Black males, it's really hard for you to help or serve them. So I've kind of become the conduit to that. And by doing that, um, again, your platform is about media. I've gained a lot of earned media. I was featured in Black Enterprise like 3 or 4 times now. I was on the cover of Black Enterprise. They called me the Pied Piper of STEM careers for youth. I never thought that I would be a thought leader from for Black boys in technology. I never thought that I would roll up in a city like Chicago and they actually call me and say, "Hey, Gerald, you want to be on the news?" I never thought that I would be in this position, but it's all a part of how you tell your story, how you share your narrative, which ultimately has an impact on our ability to build the organization. So, in relationship to social media and the platform, it's always going to be how you tell your story, how you share the narrative, how you come in with valuable facts for people to understand the why. So I've been really good at helping people understand why we do this work and why you need the support and the impact that we could have. And Lisa, I have 3 daughters. And when I first started, like it was unfortunate that when I would tell people that I work with young Black males, and they would be like, "Well, what about the girls?" And I'm like, "The girls are being taken care of." And this is how I can tell you how the girls are being taken care of. Black women are the most educated and have the most advanced degrees in this nation and probably the world. Black women are in college at almost double Black men. So therefore, Black women are also getting more tech degrees at that same rate. Black women are first to get divorced and last to get married. My daughters, my beautiful 3 daughters, has about a 2% chance to marry a young man in the mold of their father. And that's what keeps me up at night. So at the end of the day, Mission Fulfilled is bigger than just trying to inspire, educate, and activate Black boys. Mission Fulfilled is about restoring the Black family. Mission Fulfilled is about making sure that my daughters have an opportunity, if they so choose, to marry a man in the mold of their father, making sure that any woman out there or any man out there who has a daughter, to ensure that she has the opportunity to marry a high-tech man who's going to be able to be gainfully employed and support his family. So at the end of the day, that's what the story is about. That and it comes back to my story and having a child at 17 years old, my senior year of school, did my whole senior year of school with virtually a newborn child, and overcoming that, and then realizing that I got to take care of this child. My life is no longer mine, so I have to do something major. I don't want him to grow up how I grew up. I want the young men that we serve to take their plight, turn it into passion, and ultimately one day be a provider, a good husband, a good father, and a community builder. And how we tell that story on LinkedIn is what's going to make us a successful organization. And how we tell that story on all platforms is what's going to inspire people to come in and seed into our organization, because it's not about Black boys. It's bigger than the Black family, because in order for this country to be successful, you're going to have to make a more equitable pathway for young Black males for this country to be successful.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful, and I will definitely have to have you back on to talk about Mission Fulfilled 2030. But for our radio audience tuning in, because we have your website in our chat, but please tell our audience how they can support Mission Fulfilled 2030. And it's truly an honor having you on today. And I'll see you in our clubhouse room on Saturday. But thank you so much for all that you do. I appreciate your time, and just give also shout out your book. and your website where people can donate.
All right. Thank you for having me, first of all. But if you want to having major impact with Mission Fulfilled 2030, first, there's our website, missionfulfilled2030.org. On all our social media channels, it's also missionfulfilled2030.org. So you can hit us in the Google machine, missionfulfilled2030.org. Also connect with me on LinkedIn, Gerald A. Moore Sr. And if you connect with me, you'll find a lot of information on Mission Fulfilled and how you can actually have an impact with us, because without you, we're not successful. So missionfulfilled2030.org. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your platform. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing Giving Tuesday. And remember, people, sharing is also caring. It doesn't have to be a monetary amount. If you share what we do and share our content, that will engage a lot more people to be able to have an impact and for us to do the work that we're chosen to do.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And you're right, sharing is caring. So we all can do that on our various social media platforms as well. So we're going to bring Robert Robinson, but I'm going to talk about Michael Jackson and the 40th anniversary of the Thriller album being released. So we have a good variety of topics today. So thank you, Gerald. Have a wonderful rest of Giving Tuesday. And I'll chat with you on Saturday in Nonprofit Cheat Codes and Clubhouse.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye. So I'm going to bring in Robert Robinson. I'm so honored to have you today and
Trying
on
to get
our
in
Giving
focus here.
Tuesday. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm trying to get in focus here.
Okay, yeah, there you are.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine. Your last guest was amazing. I
Yes,
watched
he is.
I watched that, and just everything he said was inspirational.
Yes. Yes.
I was floored. First of all,
Okay. Yeah.
so I want to say thank you to him first, because his message is a message that can fall on all ears. It doesn't have to
Right.
just be young guys out here.
Mhm.
Everybody needs to open their ears and hear what he has to say. What he has to say was
Right.
vital and important. And now
Yes.
let's get to some fun stuff.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, I have to thank you so much, and to people who are viewing. Robert and his wife Amia are just awesome, very dear, close friends of mine, and so I'm just honored to have you here
Thank you.
on our platform for our first Giving Tuesday social media-thon. Been going since 9 a.m. Eastern time.
I
It's now
know.
5:30, and it's been really fun. So, and I
Good,
appreciate you
good.
for like listening to my ideas and bouncing off ideas. So we'll get into into our conversation because the time goes by fast. So
Okay.
tomorrow is November 30th, the 40th anniversary of the release of Michael Jackson's Thriller album. And you are just, everything about music. And so you're the perfect guest to have to talk about this monumental anniversary. So I'll give you the floor to talk about the Thriller album, its impact on in music, even 40 years later, and just any other news you have about the album and regarding the history. Well, it was a history making album, but just we'll talk about all things Thriller.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Let's start with the fact that Michael Jackson continually still inspires young boys and girls, still inspires 20 some odd year old men, 11-year-old boys. So let's talk about that for a moment, and let's focus really on his pop influence. He had his social detractors, his situations, his issues, but with that said, that's not what we're talking about today. Let's talk about, it's easy to focus on those things. What's wrong with someone? Let's focus on what he did right. And with Thriller, of all albums, first of all, it's an album he worked toward almost 40 years in the making. I mean, Michael Jackson started recording in the 60s, mid 60s. So it was an album that he spent his whole life building on. It's like Bruce Springsteen really started in 1975, Born in the USA came out around that time of Thriller. And at the end of the day, you still have a 10-year gap. And even if you mention Prince, first album, 1977, Purple Rain, hit hard, 1983, 84. So Michael Jackson spent his life, poured his talent for his life into Thriller. Let's talk about how he changed records, record consumption, and let's talk about how you changed the landscape. First of all, and this would be because I was listening to Gerald and I said, okay, we're going to talk about the 40th anniversary of the Thriller album. Well, Michael Jackson, before Michael Jackson and Thriller, there were no black artists on MTV. A lot of people don't remember that. Now MTV is known for reality TV shows, but before it was all music all day. And until Michael Jackson and Thriller, there were no videos by black artists. So he actually did change history, the way black men are perceived in the culture. He was the first, like Rosa Parks, like any first that you can name in black history. Michael Jackson was the first. And he continues, like I said, to inspire. And I don't have to presume that because all we have to do, I wanted to mention this, we talked about this, Lisa. I want to mention that Chris Brown was going to do a performance at the AMAs in favor of Thriller and Michael Jackson, along with Sierra. Now, a lot of people hear the story that it was creative differences and acts get cut from award shows and TV shows all the time. That wasn't the case with this one, according to Stephen Hill, who worked for Dick Clark Productions. And if you want to check this story, as most people would like to, you can go and to Google and search Stephen Hill and Michael Jackson performance AMA's Chris Brown. It will come up. The story will come up. And according to Stephen Hill is best known for being the president of BET. Stephen Hill said that essentially they didn't feel the artist complemented the material. As we know, Michael Jackson is known as wholesome. You had him in your home. He did Disney shorts. I mean, this was the guy. He did Ghost. This was the guy that you didn't mind entertaining your children on a visual screen or in recordings. So, with that said, they were saying, well, Chris Brown, his Rihanna thing, his bad boy attitude, do we want to let him do that? So, it kind of speaks to what Gerald spoke to, how we're perceived even before we're given an opportunity. But in those two instances, that's how Michael Jackson has changed the world. He's inspired someone who came generations after and pretty much wasn't primarily active when Michael Jackson was active, but he still inspired this young man whose image is no way like Michael Jackson's. And again, he broke that barrier. He said, I'm the first. Now, how Thriller changed music, it changed the way we listen to albums, especially in the 80s. When you listen to an album in the 80s, it might be one song and a bunch of fillers. Michael Jackson's album was unknown or unheard of to promote an album for 2 years. But Michael Jackson's album was promoted Thriller for 2 years. A lot of people don't know that. His album was promoted for 2 years. 7 singles came off that album, number one. And that was unheard of at that time. And in fact, it made Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, the same marketing momentum was used to promote his album to get more success and more. But Michael Jackson broke the barrier for that as well with Thriller. Until Thriller, there weren't a multi-singles album. And also the rock group Def Leppard followed with Hysteria, might be something you might not be familiar with, but Def Leppard's Hysteria followed the same lead. Let's promote several singles. Michael Jackson was the first where you had 7, 8 singles off one album promoted for 2 years. A lot of firsts there, a lot of firsts with Thriller. Now, we had a conversation, Lisa, and it was about the 40th anniversary because most LPs and most rights by an artist, they revert back to the artist after 35 years. We know Michael Jackson's not with us anymore. However, his estate enjoys the rights to Thriller. So that means they built the house at one time with a record label. If we could put it in a phrase, you shared ownership of the house with the record label. But after 35 years, it goes back to you, which means you can make full money. To put it in a better term, imagine if you shared a car with someone and you decided to rent it. Well, that person, you have to share the money. But imagine that person walked away from the car and you own it. You don't have to share the money with anybody. But that's how it works with Thriller. And Thriller is having a 40th anniversary release, among other things. Also, watch out at the newsstands in celebration of the album. There will be a magazine that will be released as well, and a documentary that's going to be released about Thriller, and also an immersive experience. And typically, an album from 40 years ago doesn't merit that type of attention. There's not one that you can name by the Beatles, by Elvis, by Elton John, by Prince, if you will, by Jay-Z. There's not an album, well, Jay-Z doesn't have a 40-year-old album, but there's not an album that you will find still creates this kind of excitement. So Michael Jackson was the first in a lot of senses. Now the 40-year re-release is going to also have 10 songs that were created. Typically an album, it's not unusual for an artist to create 50 songs and then whittle down to about 12. So Michael Jackson did extra material. Sony said we have some here and they want to share with the estate because they want to share with the profits, of course. So they said, we'll share some of these records. We'll release the album. Let's see if we can make some money together. It's a great effort on their part. But at the end of the day, Thriller changed history, changed music history. Elvis has never reached this pinnacle. The Beatles, no one in pop music has, or jazz, or gospel, or folk. Across the board, no one has reached this level of success on the strength of one album. And it kind of indicates how we still listen to music. If we hear one great song, first great song probably anybody remembers is Billie Jean. And that's the expectation of all artists now. You have to have a signature song. You have to have one great song that's pretty much going to signal the rest of your career. So, in a nutshell, Thriller has changed the world. Uh, there's one album, and it doesn't even come close. Thriller sold about 70 million albums. 70, it's argued that's 100 million albums, but it's between 70 and 100 million. The only album that comes close from a sales perspective is the Eagles, 1971 to 1975, the greatest hits, because my father-in-law, he was asking me which Eagles album. So I have to make sure, in his sense and in his words, and not disingenuous, I got to make sure I have the right information because he will, as the kids would say, clown me for that if I did. So outside of that, Back in Black was the next studio album, sold 30 million copies, and came not even close to Thriller. So with that said, it changed the culture, changed perception, it changes the way we look at music, pop music, and it changes the way music's released. So it's a groundbreaking, world-shattering album, and the re-release is under $20. So if you have that, I know this is Giving Tuesday, so give to Lisa and KISA Radio. But then if you have a little more giving in your heart, give yourself that album. We have an opportunity. And that, in a nutshell, will wrap up what I know and understand about Thriller.
Well, I am just amazed because you are, and I knew this coming in, but I've learned so much in just like the last 10 minutes of me introducing you about that. I mean, you're like an encyclopedia on music, which is really awesome, you know, because you're sharing these nuggets about the Michael Jackson Thriller album and also how other albums compare to it. And so thank you for sharing that. And so now
Sure.
I want to now, okay, so the music business, as far as like sharing, you know, the Michael Jackson estate, and then with record labels now. So where do you see the music industry going now that we have streaming, and then and what role does the record labels play in the industry now with artists? Just kind of give us an overview of where the music industry is now for artists, and especially independent artists that that want to get more exposure or have a label with them.
Well, let's talk about independent artists. Let's talk to them first since we are giving. So, independent artists, I would say, don't understand the business, but know your business, right? Know what you want to do to make yourself successful, but make sure that it's a cliche, but concentrate on the bigger word in show business because that's the only way you're going to make money. And you deserve, independent artists deserve to make money off their art, off their lifeblood. That's, you deserve that. Now, when we talk about the record label infrastructure, it's no longer where they had the strength and control. It got to a point, the record label and record companies were pretty much run by whoever wanted to. And then individuals with educations like lawyers and accountants came in and said, hey, we can make money, we can make more money. You'll find that a record company has more, or in the past, a record company would have more Harvard grads, more lawyers, more accountants than they actually did music lovers. And you have to understand how your deal works. For an artist nowadays, they don't have to go through a record label. They can do like you're doing. They can go right to the internet. It's the great equalizer. Don't spend a lot of time with the record label. And if you do, I would say make them meet you where you live because you have what they truly want. It's no more of a thing. I'm going to throw $25,000 at you and you're going to go in the studio and make this smash album and then I'm going to promote it, press it out. And then on the back end, I'm going to charge you for your outfits. I'm going to charge you for the advertising on the tour. You don't have to wait for a record label to make you a star. All you have to do is one thing, and that is know your business. You don't have to understand the record business because if you know your business, you know the song in your heart that's going to make you popular. First thing you do is copyright that song. Then you put it on the internet and watch people. If it's good, go listen to it. If they don't listen to it, they don't find it, then you know you're doing something wrong. It's your business to find out what you're doing wrong that people don't. Now, if you're not planning on making money off your art, and a lot of great artists weren't, then do what you like and put it on the internet. But you don't have to wait for a record company president like Dave Geffen, who's no longer a record company president, or Russell Simmons, who's no longer a record company president, probably two of the hippest record company presidents alive and didn't come from, well, Russell Simmons didn't come from money, but David Geffen probably did. But you don't have to go to a record label anymore. All you have to do is start building your buzz, but make sure you protect yourself. Make sure you go to the internet, the SoundClouds. There are all kinds of websites, and Google and the internet, they're the great equalizer. Where can I post my music? That's it. Where can I post my music? Then you go and you create it. And you used to have to go to a studio and pay $25 an hour. Now you can get a software. I think the kids say the most popular one is Fruity Loops. And you can pretty much make any sound you want. You can go to your Apple phone. It has keyboard and a guitar in it. And those are apps that you don't have to download. So you pretty much you can buy a drum machine for less than $300. So you're talking about a studio recording for less than $800, $500. Then you put it on the internet. You don't have to wait for a record label to come in and promote you. Promote yourself. And then when you start doing shows, manage them yourself. You can't manage them anymore. There's going to be somebody that you're going to have to, but make sure you pay them what you want to pay them for their connections or for their expertise. So that's what I would tell an independent artist. Don't wait on a record label because they're not going to find you. They're not going to do what's in your best interest. You can do this yourself. Just again, don't understand the business. Know your business, and that's how you
Mm-hmm.
make it.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that. And we will definitely, because our interviews will go on to our podcast and also social media. So we will definitely highlight that for people to listen to that, want to get into the music space. So we're going to switch because you are a big comic book person. Like, I'm just amazed at your collection. And so when I was talking with you about the comic books that you have, I was just amazed at the artwork. And so here on with KISA Media, we want to highlight Black excellence and people who are doing things behind the scenes. And but you and I started having a conversation about Blacks in comic books, especially the artists and also the characters, and then we'll get into Black Panther in a moment. But please share with our audience about the comic book industry and creators, and also any Blacks in that space that you could possibly speak about for our audience to learn more about, or also the lack of, because I know there might be some concerns on that side as well.
Very much so. Very a lot of concerns. Now, if you care about creators, if you are a comic book fan, you want to see good comic book art by a black artist. The most mainstream black artist is Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson drew a comic strip called The Thing. And when you say that, that can mean a lot of things, a lot of horror movies. But if anybody remembers or has ever heard of the Fantastic Four by Marvel Comics, might not know that there's a orange kind of rocked superhero. He's made of a bunch of rocks, cosmic rays, and Ron Wilson actually helmed his solo book, and the artwork is exquisite. Also, for black writers, you have Christopher Priest. And let's talk about comic books for a minute. Let's just break it down. You're 100% right. It is about the art because when you look at the covers are made to appear like posters. So when you look at these covers, and they say don't judge a book by its cover, but that's what every comic book fan really does. They look at the cover and say, I'm going to buy this. I'm not going to buy this, right? That's going to either, it's kind of like a marquee for a movie. It draws you into the book. I look at covers sometimes and I don't care how good it looks. If it looks like it's not going to be much of a story based on the cover, I'm not, and I could follow the issues consecutively. But if the cover art is not something that I can look at and say, the story looks good inside, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to pay any mind to it. So, with that said, again, Ron Wilson, Christopher Priest, two black creators. Let's talk about comics in the regard that they weren't always our friend either. Comic books had racial stereotypes. Comic books pandered more to the white hero than to the black hero. That did start to change because it's so coincidental that we're going to talk about Black Panther because that did change with Black Panther. Even though, like Disney with the Black Panther property, Black Panther was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the 60s. And he said, let's make this guy different because they didn't know how to use their art form to strike out against racism. They weren't fond of it. And sometimes even they were guilty of it and didn't realize it. Like Black Panther was actually supposed to be called the Coal Tiger, as in black coal. So it's not a cool superhero name, by the way. Calling somebody a coal or piece of coal or rock tiger, and I don't even know how that would translate into a costume. But Stan Lee was of the mind of let's make this hero everything that a black hero hasn't been up until now. So that's why you had the guy with a secretive African nation country, richer than Tony Stark, Iron Man. He was self-sufficient, he was proud, and he was powerful. And he lasted many, many years and many, many allies to many mainstream heroes. Now, if you're really into comic books that would speak to you culturally, I would suggest, well, first of all, I don't suggest really anybody buying anything that they're not into. If it's not what you're into, then don't buy it. I started with comic books, to be honest with you, when I was maybe 5 or 6. I like reading. I always like reading. I can't even say the word, but I always like reading. And I used to pull encyclopedias down from the shelves my dad had, and I would read the encyclopedia, but I would read like you know how in encyclopedia the column it's laid out for you. I would read straight across the page. So my dad thought it was cool that I was reading, but he's like, he needs to learn how to kind of focus on what's being said. So really, comic books. If I was to give anybody advice to buy comic books, I would say buy it for literacy. It's a great way to start when it comes to reading literacy because you have the pictures right there to inform you of the action, but it will have you reading about very adult themes. You know, about not only superhero being a superhero, you'll read about romance, you'll read about life changes, politics. Some comic books are written like that. They focus on what's going on today. You know, like comic books about racism, about drug abuse. Now, that's my start line. Now, you can also make money. You're also an investment as well. In this era, they have a thing called variant covers. The variant cover is like if Spider-Man issue 33 comes out, they might release three different covers. And the variant covers are the popular covers because they're scarce. They become very scarce. Like collectors say, it's that's what we return. That's what we start with. I would say if you were now as like squares, like community, it's just big places. Like superhero.com, like superheroes.com, this was, you know, it sounds big, please don't believe that there's any implication relation to like meetings that is just things that's big. I think they made the mistake because they were doing things so many things for so many years. These companies kind of get they peak and recommend, you know, make them. That's GHETTMANGA dot blogspot.com. I was on there today and there's actually and these guys they don't they multiple websites on this one particular they get no advertising mentioning different ones that we face like race consciousness and so that would be my suggestion. And
All right, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm working with tech. We have some technical issues with our audio, so hopefully you can. Okay. So I wanted to just ask it because we're going to wrap up shortly, but just talk a little bit about Wakanda Forever because and your feedback regarding the film and any thoughts and suggestions, and also I would like to encourage you to start a podcast because I just heard from my sister and she is loving everything that you're saying and I'm going to quote her. She says I think people would really enjoy listening to him all day to learn the history of things and such fun topics. So I'm hoping that by doing this interview that you will be encouraged to do a podcast because you have a lot to share and just a lot of knowledge about so many things because I'm always learning from you whenever I'm in, with you and Amia and I just think you need to get everything that you have out to the world to be able to share and enlighten people all over the world about so many different topics. So yeah, I'm going to bring you back to on screen to be able to just we're going to wrap up and talk about Wakanda Forever, and I'm going to work on the audio. But thank you so much. So I'll give it back to you.
well, let's talk about Wakanda Forever, and I want to thank your sister. Very nice of her, and I am thinking about doing something like that. I do have a lot that I would like to share, and I like to make it easy for people to understand so that they get some value out of it. That's only fair if somebody's going to listen to you. Let's talk about Wakanda Forever. I'm going to try to keep it 60 seconds because I'm sure you have a great guest lined up like Gerald, and I don't want your audience to miss a thing. So, Wakanda Forever, I'm hoping that it hits $1 billion. Here's the deal: we're at 550 million now. It's been a sluggish just November. Let's talk about the impact of the movie. First of all, let's talk about the impact of the culture. It was very respectable to the Black community, also to the Aztec community. Namor in the comic book is not known to be he's known to be the king of Atlantis, but I think Ryan Coogler wanted to get away from that and say everybody says underwater you king of Atlantis. So he did the Aztec, but it's very respectable how Disney respected both cultures. They talked about the Aztec culture, they talked about the Black culture very respectably. Let's talk about women. Women were really the heroes in this movie. Lupita Nyong'o, you can draw a lot from the fact she had the Black Panther's son and said, "I want different for him," and decided to go a different way. And Black women have to think of a different way to go every day with children sometimes, and that's a whole topic by itself, so we won't talk about it. But please look at these entertainment, because life does imitate art and vice versa. So then you had Dominique Thorne, who played Ironheart. Why can't a young Black girl be an MIT student making money before she gets out, and technology being bought by the government? Then you had, of course, the showstopper, Angela Bassett as Queen Ramona. Nobody showed strength like that from the moment she stepped on screen. So I want to say that I would give the movie a 10. And it's no reason. Don't go looking for a superhero movie. It is a superhero movie. It is fantastic. But don't go looking for that. Go looking for, one, to be entertained, but two, really try to keep footnotes of the messages that this movie tried to put out. Like with Namor, Aztecs, they weren't loved either. We're not the only race that wasn't loved. And he gave a lot of love to a race that he really didn't have to. So did Disney. They had to be behind it 100%. Brian Coogler always does great by the Black community. It's a 10. And if you're not going to see it, you should regret any of the movie that you've seen up to this time, because the movie's fantastic. You can't really say anything bad about it. And it's fantastic, but that's what movies are supposed to be, right? We all have a hard life, so we should be able to pay $20 and relax for a minute and breathe. We can go on, but again, I want to give you a guest a chance to come in and do. And I apologize for anything I stepped on. It's important that you get out here. They're awesome. Gerald was awesome. Your dad was awesome.
Oh,
These
thank
other,
you.
they have to be. Your dad was awesome. He was just. I love.
Yeah, so I'm just very grateful to have him start off our first social media-a-thon, and but thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the support, and we actually had in our chat a friend named L Baldwin who is like cheering you on for starting your own podcast as well. So you have fans out here. So we're going to make that a plan for 2023 to have
Definitely.
Robert Robinson, yes, with the podcast,
Definitely.
because you
You can call
definitely
me
have a lot.
Berto. You can call me what you call me. It's not an insult.
Okay.
We'll have to tell that story when we have more time some other day.
Exactly, yes. Well, yeah, Berto and Amia, I'm just so grateful for your friendship and
We love you too.
just awesome. And so we have Gina Gale coming up. She's a photojournalist. So thank you, Robert Robinson, Berto, for for joining us. And we'll definitely bring you back to be able to talk some more about music, film, comics, comic books, all that good stuff.
I'd love to be back to add some
All right.
lightness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening. And yes,
You
stay
too.
tuned. We have more people up
I
until about
definitely
9.
will.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So thank you. Just so that was a wonderful conversation. So I appreciate you watching and tuning in for our first social media-a-thon. And I am excited to bring our next guest, Dr. Gina Gale, who is a photojournalist. And just I read her story online, and I was like, I have to have her on. So we're going to bring Dr. Gale in, who will talk about photojournalism and also share stories about her father who worked in photography, and how that impacted her career as a photojournalist now. So I'm going to bring her in, and thank you all for watching. We really appreciate the support. And because the reason I started this social media-a-thon is to raise money to launch a podcasting camp for children. Within the African American community, 14% of children are reading at, well, I'm sorry, 14% of fourth graders are reading at the fourth grade level, which means that that's 86% of children that are not reading at the level they should be by fourth grade. And so our mission is to be able to transform the life of a child through the wonderful world of podcasting. And so that's why I wanted to bring journalists in today to be able to talk about the importance of journalism, and then also highlight Giving Tuesday. So I will bring Dr. Gale in now for our interview. Hello, Dr. Gale. How are you?
Hey, how are you? And thank you
I'm
so
great.
much for having me.
Oh,
I'm just
yes.
going to apologize to people. This is my first time being on this, And so my camera is a little goofy. But hi.
Yeah, so everything will be fine. And so I will let you speak about about your career and how you got started as a photojournalist, because I learned about your father and just wanted to have you share the story about how he influenced your career as a photojournalist. So take us back to the to Gina Gale's childhood and to where you are today. And thank you for being here. I really
Oh my
appreciate your time.
goodness. I am so glad that you reached out to me and found me to be here. And I also, the previous guest that you had was talking about your father. I hear that too. So I'm going to take you back to my childhood. I was an only child. I was actually born on my father. If that had something else to do with our symmetry. But I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad was a photographer. He was the first Black photographer. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that everywhere I grew up in the 70s, a lot of people had film cameras. So my father was basically, today, everybody has a camera. He always had his camera with him. And so I grew up knowing or thinking that that was regular. He photographed the Black community. I grew up knowing, seeing people in the Black community who were lawyers, doctors, entrepreneur, or let's say small business owners, teachers, principals, leaders. I just, that was my world. So a lot, because me and my dad would hang out going to one of his assignments, like the park. We didn't go to, I don't even know if I ever went to him. One, because he was a little cheap, but that's okay. But I would go to bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I would go to family reunions. I would go. We had this place called the Hofbrau House, and they were actually one of his clients. So were celebrated by the people in the Hofbrau House. I celebrated those going with, back then they had these, and I was the flashlight holder. I would hold this big flashlight. Someone pressed the shutter, and I remember that there was this woman, Zelma George. She was very Cleveland, and I went with him, and to photograph. And my dad let me use the camera, and he let me take some pictures. And he said that the one were actually mine. So it's like, did you still know? So that was it. I went to a very and my father wanted the best for me. And so we traveled a lot, but I was always like, I'm gonna quit. So when we did these road trips, I was always looking out the windows. I mean, everything to roll. So I want to be a photographer. I didn't know when. I knew I didn't want to compete with my father. Was terminally ill, and I remember being in the hospital. I'll go and photograph with you, and saying something to me. I was asking him, did he have any regrets? The photographer for the Mike Douglas show, when it was in Cleveland, and he could have gone to California, and I'm in LA, Hollywood, I was like, do you have any regrets? I mean, like LA. And he was like, no. And he's like, I don't. who knows what would have happened when we got out there. Your mom would have left me. You'd have been strung out instead. But he had no regrets. And the thing that he told me, he was like, and don't you have any regrets either. And at that point, I was working as a farm selling stuff like Advil and Tristan and Preparation H. And this is, I saw my dad be excited to go to work. I saw him photographing on his days off. I saw him time come home and he was just excited to tell us about his day. And then sometimes he would retrace his steps and take us to these great places or photographed. So that's what I thought life was supposed to be about. You go out. I didn't know how. I mean, we were working middle class, but I thought, and I knew that I wasn't getting that for my first job.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and it was good to hear because I've read about it online, but it's always good to hear it, in person from you. So I would like, oh sure, thank you. So I would like to share with our audience like what a photojournalist does and what does that mean. So kind of take us, just take us through what it's like as a photojournalist and what that really involves, to be able to.
Okay. Let me tell you, because it has changed. So when I was a kid, I grew up because my father was a working photojournalist. And I had free, I guess I shouldn't, well, they're not going to get him now. But I had free film because he had free film, free paper. I had free chemicals. So I didn't understand, everything that went into it. I also, let's say, actually by watching him. So I thought that, if I had a camera and Nikons, if I had a camera, I didn't understand what f-stop and shutter speed. I just knew that needle had to match in the viewfinder. I didn't know about a contact sheet. I didn't know it was timed things to see which exposure, and I can't remember what the name of it is now. My father put the thing in the chemicals. Madness came up, and somehow he knew when to take it out. How I did. Photojournalists, they work for mostly what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for newspapers because I wanted to use that would not necessarily have the opportunity to raise. I loved newspaper photojournalism because every day you know what was going to happen. Maybe it would be a slow day and you might have restaurant reviews. I used until I loved restaurant reviews, right? Until I didn't have any more. It'd be photographing, politicians, or depending on I'm in New York, sometimes I was doing red carpets. Sometimes I was doing sometimes I was doing hard news. I lived in Harlem when I was, and I might get a call like, "Hey, I did get a call. They were, hey, the way the A line on 145th Street. Boom! I got to hurry up and get there. For real of it. I was in it when we first started using digital. We started doing multimedia, and I know that there has been with digital media journalism, whatever we want to call it, that I think within this digital landscape, there is so much for visuals. Because when we were in newsprint, I put pictures in, and all the rest had to be for words. Now, on even show some not as good photographs, right? Visual presence. So that's what I'm excited about.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's good. And so let's talk about equipment because I'm a Nikon person. I'm a Nikon person. I've had Nikon since the early days of college, but I know some people use Canon, some might use a Sony mirrorless camera. So, for people that are listening, what advice would you give who might want to start a career as a photojournalist, how to start off and what type of equipment to purchase to be able to move into this space as a photojournalist?
I would say that we're Nikon. I'm gonna call you right. Some people are strictly Canon. My colleague and classmate was the holiday break, and he's like totally into Canon. I have no idea what Canon is. That Pentax. They had the K2000. That was started out with. Pentax is coming up with digital stuff. Sony has great digital stuff. A person starting out right now, start out with a system that you can afford, that you think that you will stay with. Now, if price is not a problem, go get what the tug of war is from in when digital. If you were a Nikon and then Canon had around the better cameras, they would switch all out to Canon and they would switch back over to Nikon. I would say look at your price point, the equipment, find the manufacturer that you can afford, and then so even when Nikon, even when Canon was like on the rise, because I only knew Nikon and their focusing systems, and it's different. Find a system within your budget that you like. See if it's going to grow, if they are going to expand, and if by some chance you get a whole bunch of money and you can switch system, do that. But it's really about your price.
Yes. Okay. Yes, and also now when you're framing shots, because I'm always fascinated, like whenever I see work of award-winning photojournalists. Now, so when you're capturing images and you're out in the field, what are you looking for, and how do you know like when to snap or when to capture the right moment? Um, so kind of take us like kind of give us a behind the scenes look of you might be out at an event, or you might be doing some other kind of photography. Like tell us about your eye and what you're seeing before actually capturing that image.
Oh, sure. I'm going to tell you, like I tell my students, like a really good question for today, because we were all going over their portfolios, right?
Mhm.
Assignments. So as a photojournalist, like I said, you never know what assignment you're going to have, be Pee Wee League to professional, right?
Yeah.
You come a weather assignment because it's a slow news day. I don't think if we've ever had slow news breaking news, but maybe you go out and get a nice feature photo, which is right, and it could be weather, it could be two people, or a connection or something like that. It could be an event. It could be hard news, soft news. It could be the Chicago River light green for St. Patrick's Day. So what you really want to do is in image, you want to look at okay, what is your intent? If the
Yeah.
assignment to be photojournalistic, is it to be because in photojournalism we don't set up images, portraits. So
Right.
it really, what is the purpose of the assignment? What is, even if you're only making one photograph, what is your intention of that image, right?
Mhm.
And then you use all these photo visual, sometimes people call them tricks or tools and skills. Okay.
Mhm.
So photography is the study of light. Where is the light coming from? Where's the light going to? Is it from, a good time to photograph? It's a beautiful time of the day, but angles. So I teach my students, I'm like, this is your safety shot. It's your CYA shot. I don't know if I can use pi A. Cover your arse. You start there, and then I'm up, down, side to side, right? You got to do all these different angles, shadows or silhouettes or long repetition, um, shapes, colors, those types of things. The student who loves architecture, photography, right?
Mhm.
And I'm the architecture, the buildings, they don't move, they don't talk, they don't have on different clothes. So what you have to do to make it interesting is use all your tools, use all your skills. We're not set up, a building. We can't tell the building to move, right? So all of those skills.
Mhm.
It's different from fine art photography because if we are setting up some big old lights, right? We have to work with the light. If it's raining, foggy, we have to work with it. So I don't know if I answered your question. I go off on tangents. I'm so excited.
No. Oh, no. You did answer my question, and because now, like, as I hold up my phone, it's like people can use this to capture images as well. So no, everything you shared was very helpful. Now, what
Oh, and
now? Go ahead.
Lisa, real quick. Okay. So I tell my students that yes, everybody has a camera phone. The difference
Mhm.
is that there will be people taking pictures, photographing. Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if you have a camera, all those skills and tips. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then was here this weekend, and he was doing this test between iPhone and his Canon mirrorless camera. It was
Mhm.
gorgeous.
Oh,
And
wow.
we were talking about like, hey, we're not as young as we were 20, 30 years ago, right? With that heavy. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm gonna take my phone
Mhm.
and movement. And there was an app, and it's called the best camera you have is the one.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Yes, well, I appreciate you telling us about that as well. And so we're going to wrap up shortly, but I want
Thank
to. I always like to end our interviews, and I'm just so happy that you're joining us. And I found you online, and I look forward to meeting you in person, and we can talk more
Oh, we're gonna
about the
stay
wonderful world.
connected. Oh my goodness, we're gonna
Yes,
stay
I
connected.
love
I
it.
hope. Yeah.
I love it because I definitely want to support your work and also the work of your students and because I really feel what you're doing is really important
Uh-oh, there was a glitch.
career and also give advice
Hmm.
to people tuning in about photojournalism. Now, so in closing,
Absolutely.
oh yes, yeah, and also the story about your father was really inspiring too. So I just want to highlight that as well. So I now in closing, take us to the time that you captured your favorite image. Like, is there an image where you just look at it or think about and say, "Wow, like I captured this image in this moment." because actually I'm a photographer on the side, and actually you and I named Christopher Moore are connected on LinkedIn, and do you know him? You know Christopher Moore?
I don't know, but I'm writing it down. I'm like, Christopher Moore. Okay.
Yeah, so so Chris is a phenomenal photographer. So I really learned a lot from him. And so we captured a wedding a few weeks ago together, and the images were just beautiful. And so I want to know, like in your career, what is that one image that you just like after you saw it and like sat back and like had a chance to like really look at it, it just kind of like amazed you and you said, wow, I captured this image. Is there that one image that stands out for you?
Okay, this is gonna be a long answer, but I'm gonna say, like I say to my students, photographers, we love all of our photographs, right?
Yeah.
I'm a dark room. It was an experience. This stuff come from nothing, right? So you have that roll of film and you're like stuff on it. Then you develop the picture. So whenever I loved it. And people ask me this question like this. There are photographs that absolutely and sometimes when I'm going through my photographs, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that one. But I will tell you that I remember images that I didn't capture, and they were very personal. Sometimes, and I tell my students too, sometimes and be in the moment, be let them get to know you, especially on a and then whatever images you missed at the beginning for it when you have developed that connection or that relationship a very long time. It can be over a matter of minutes. It can be over a matter of hours. It could be over a matter of years. But and you will get the most rewarding that will stick with you. And there is one that is not in my portfolio from a small town in Midland, Michigan. And it was a young kid, and he was blind, and he was learning to cross the street. Not a big town. This is still a dangerous exercise. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm just gonna take some photographs. I go up and I introduce myself. And I get this young man's delightful. And as I'm walking away, I'm like, okay, be safe. Good luck with your lessons. And this young person, he was like, and you be. And so it's not even an image. It is a kind of remember with people. And so I love all my pictures, but I do remember the ones that I wish I had taken. Then I remember the stories behind the images. So.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And like I say, it's really a pleasure.
I gotta do a little shout out to myself. We're talking about my dad's work project. It's called the James Scale Collection. I am cataloging it or organizing it. We're going to have beautiful multimedia, hopefully in Cleveland in the near future. There's also a Black Glove Project, which I've been doing since the 90s, and it's just photographing art in our communities. And especially that only get visited for negative reasons.
Yeah.
And then this summer, just shout out, I just had the meeting yesterday, taking a group of students from Emerson to Ghana Media storytelling. And we've partnered with Black-owned, I think it's Hilltop Global Group. Anyway, I want to shout them out. And they're on the continent. So I'm really looking forward to, it'll be my first. I want to know where I come from. And one of the questions, one of them asked in the meeting, I was like, do you have a shipping company so I can ship all my... So you see where my priorities are.
Right.
But
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to about, the culture, and also learning more about the culture.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Well, like I say, we'll definitely keep in touch. And I would love to be able to highlight the events you have coming up. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And then we'll definitely share it with our audience too, whenever we're promoting this.
And we'll connect about podcasting, because I do need to talk to you about podcasting.
Okay, perfect. Yes. All right. Well, I'm here to help wherever you need help, and to support as well. So, yeah, we're definitely going to contact. All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.
This evening, and I think that this is such an amazing. So much for having me.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate you. So thank you so much. And have a great evening. And we're going to bring in Jamila. So, all right. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right. So thank you for tuning in. That was a wonderful conversation that we had with Dr. Gina Gale, as a photojournalist. And so now we're going to bring in Jamila Tucker Mulero. I see you. Let me see. Give me 1 second, because I see her in our waiting room, but we need to have the camera on so we can see you and talk all about Autism Rec. So while she's doing that, I'll just kind of give you an overview of what I've been doing today. And thank you to my friends and family that are watching and supporting us as we do our KISA Media Giving Tuesday social media-a-thon. And would just like to highlight the reason why I'm doing it is because we're looking to a podcasting camp for children. And so the money we raised from today, and also through the holiday season, because we're calling it a season of giving, and Giving Tuesday is our launch day. But our goal is to transform the lives of children through the wonderful world of podcasting. And so this is really why I'm doing this today, to just bring more awareness to illiteracy within the African American community, especially with children. So I am honored to bring in Jamila Tucker Mulero from Autism Rec. It's a wonderful organization that works with autistic children. And we met on Clubhouse, which is, people might not know, it's a social audio only app, and where we met through nonprofit cheat codes. And I just wanted to have you on, Jamila. So thank you for being here, because your story is just inspiring, and the work that you're doing is just phenomenal. So welcome. It's our first Giving Tuesday social media-a-thon, and I'm going to let you have the full screen and tell our audience about who you are and why you started Autism Rec. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. So my name is Jamila Tucker Mulero. I am a mother of 2, and then I also have 3 bonus kids, which are my stepkids. So Autism Rec started because of my youngest son, Jasir, who has autism. He was diagnosed with autism at age 2, and he is 13 as of right now. Being in the urban community, there was a lack of resources, a lack of support for our urban community and our Black collar families. So I just, instead of complaining about it, I wanted to do a little something more about it. And that's where I started Autism Rec, and I started Autism Rec in 2017.
Well, wonderful. And so now tell our audience, or just share with our audience, what you can about autism, because you might hear it in the news or just in random conversations. But as a parent of a child that has autism, please just enlighten us about autism, and how it affects children, and also like the also being a parent of an autistic child.
So autism is a neurological disorder. Um, Autism can affect someone's speech. It can affect someone's ability to just do everyday activities. So my son, autism is also comes in different spectrums. So you can have someone that's high on a spectrum and that can function every day, but just has those certain traits that they're not comfortable with. Like they may not be able to give you eye contact, or they may not be able to comprehend um, how to use certain objects or certain things. So my son, he is mid on a spectrum. I don't really like to use the low, mid, and high on a spectrum because my son is mid on the spectrum, he can do things that other kids that are high functional on the spectrum can do. And then there's kids that's high on a spectrum that's unable to do things that other kids can do. So I don't like to use the different levels. So I would just say my son needs a little bit more assistance. My son doesn't comprehend. It takes him a little bit longer to um, comprehend what you're saying or to even make a complete sentence. My son was nonverbal until the age of 7. He at the age of 7, he may have been saying one or two words, still not complete sentences. He didn't start saying complete sentences until maybe age 9. Even then, you still couldn't make out everything that he said. Um, Kids on the autism spectrum have sensory issues, so they may be sensitive to light. Some light may hurt their eyes. Um, they're sensitive to noise, so some noise may hurt their ears, which may also cause them to have some meltdowns or some other issues with, some people say it's behavior problems, but it's not a behavior problem so much as just overstimulation and being overwhelmed of everything that they hear. So some things that they hear, we may not be able to hear, but they can hear it loud and clear. So for instance, just for an example, we can be in a room with a crowd of 10 people and we're talking to one person and we hear that one person talking back to us. But a child with autism that can be in a room, they can hear each and every conversation. They can hear 10 conversations and it gets overwhelming. So they don't know what to take in. So that's when you may see kids that may, or even adults that may cover their ears. Um, you may see adults that, or kids that just may look like they're overwhelmed, and it's because again, autism is a neurological disorder and it affects your brain and it affects your mind. So it could just be a lot going on at the time in their mind. So that's a little bit about some of the things that my son goes through. Again, autism is a spectrum disorder. So it may be different for another child. And we always say, as a parent, if you've seen one child on the autism spectrum, then you've seen one child on the autism spectrum, because each child can be affected differently in each way.
Well, I'm really glad you shared that, because yeah, because I learned, especially about hearing different conversations. I had no idea that, and I can imagine what like when you're hearing that. That's a lot of confusion. So I learned
Yeah.
something new about that as well. So today is Giving Tuesday, and we're highlighting nonprofits, and I want to compliment you for what you're doing, but I know it's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on to make your nonprofit a success. And I want to share with our audience, like like what is a typical day like for you whenever you're preparing for an event? Because I remember in our clubhouse, you know, you're working with Target now, and people, and based on your story. So kind of take us through like what a day in the life of Jamila is like as far as preparing for an autism rec event, because you're doing outstanding things, and I'm always in awe whenever I see you come in that room. I'm like, Jamila's here, yay! So I'm cheering you on through Clubhouse. So
Thank you.
but yeah, but oh, sure, yes, but I want to just because people are tuning in and might have an idea to start a nonprofit about something they really care about, and but there's a lot of work that goes on behind it, and it might discourage people. But you're doing it, and you're out here, and you're making a difference in a space that really was like there wasn't anything going on,
Yes.
and so yeah, just take us through what a day in the life of autism rec is like. I'm sorry, like be more specific, like planning an event and getting donations and trying to do social media. So just share it all.
So, planning an event for Autism Rec, I have to take in consideration of my audience, which is the autism community, autistic children. So I have to take in consideration of their sensory issues, being the light, the noise, the crowd, being overwhelmed. So I have to, once I take that in consideration, I then figure out what I need. Um, we don't ever have a DJ at our events because of the music and the noise. Um, and just being an autistic parent myself, planning an event can be very nerve wracking for me because I never know how my son's day is going to be. He can be in a good mood 1 minute, and then the next minute he can have a meltdown. He can be wanting to harm himself or wanting to harm someone else. So I'm always nervous before planning an event because I want it to go well, and I wanted to not just focus on the kids, but I want to also give the parents some comfortability to know that Autism Rec is a safe space, not just for the kids, but for the parents as well. So I take that into consideration. I'm always posting, I'm always sharing. I post my events on any and every platform that I can, and that's how Target found me. I didn't necessarily reach out to Target. They reached out to me because they saw my event posted somewhere, and they asked if they could help, if we needed any volunteers. So of course I said yes, we needed volunteers. And just from that relationship, and that was for our backpack giveaway, and from them volunteering from that just built a relationship and created a relationship from them seeing the impact that we're making, seeing the families come out, seeing the families and the kids enjoying themselves. They decided and asked if they can stay on board for our future events. So of course I said yes, because we need that. We need that support. We need the volunteers. We can always use volunteers again because things can be overwhelming for the kids. So if it's overwhelming for the kids, and then it can be overwhelming for the parents. And then some parents too, if it becomes overwhelming for them as well as their kids, they can be a little bit embarrassed and feel ashamed. So I just need to have all hands on deck. So I have my family participating and volunteering. Then we have the Target people participating and volunteering. We have autistic adults that participate and volunteer with us, because they can also help calm another autistic child down. Autistic adult may know more and a better way to calm an autistic child down. So we look for all volunteers. I also do my $5 Fridays that I got from Gerald Moore, who is also on Clubhouse. We do our $5 Fridays to raise money. We also, on Eventbrite, we also do sponsorships where we allow companies and individuals to sponsor a child, sponsor a family, or sponsor something within the event. I also reach out to other organizations and ask them for their help, because I know I can't do it by myself. I tried, and I was for since 2017. But since 2017, since we started, we've gotten a lot more inquiries. We've gotten bigger. Our organization have grown. So we can use a lot of volunteers. We can use a lot of help. So if you are in the Philadelphia area and you would like to volunteer with Autism Rec, please come out and volunteer with us. December, we have our Christmas party, and that's another thing that we do. I do different events and different activities for the kids, because oftentimes autistic families are left out. Oftentimes you see other organizations having these giveaways, but we know as a parent that event may be too much for my child. Standing in line with a lot of people may be too much for my child. So that's where Autism Rec comes in, that where we don't have you standing in line outside in the cold. We bring you inside. We take in consideration that your child may get overwhelmed. So we have a quiet place where your child can go while you getting the necessities or the resources that you need for you or your family. We also have a sensory area for the kids, where sensory items and sensory things can also help keep them calm and can distract them from the crowd and everything else that's going on. So that's where Autism Rec comes in there. We just want parents to feel like this is your safe space. This is your child's safe space. There's no judgment. Um, you don't have to feel embarrassed, because we're all going through the same thing. We are all in this together. We know the struggle. We understand the struggle. We understand and we know the dirty looks that we get from other parents that may not understand autism. So that's what I tried to make Autism Rec about. And the rec is for the hopes of becoming a recreation center designed for autistic kids. Um, you see a lot of organizations that have basketball teams or football teams, but none of that is catered to or even taken in consideration to have a kid with autism on a team. So that's what I'm hoping to do for Autism Rec, and I can do that with the support of everyone out there to make a donation or to volunteer, just to help out and support our cause.
Yes, yeah, and I because we'll wrap up shortly, because I would like for you. We have listeners tuning in on our radio station, so I would like for you to share the website and how people will be able to donate, and we'll definitely include your information on social media posts to be able to get more exposure to Autism Rec. So I want to ask, and we'll wrap up shortly, but I want to ask,
Mhm.
what are your long term plans for Autism Rec? Because it's definitely needed around the country. So where do you see Autism Rec, let's say by 2030? We'll go with Gerald Moore's Mission Fulfilled 2030. So where will Autism Rec be by 2030?
Um, Hoping Autism Rec in 2030, we will become a large, well-known organization, um, hitting all 50 states. Right now, we do serve three different states: Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. Although those families do travel to Philadelphia, I'm hoping that we can have a center recreation centers within the United States. It's like you said, it's very much needed. Um, it's something that I say is needed not just for the parents, but it's needed for the kids. And I say that because if we can go back and look at some of these school shootings, some of these school shootings that has happened has been kids that has been um, diagnosed on the autism spectrum or that has some form of autism. So with having a safe space, having a recreation center, or having a crisis center for autistic children or adults can help a whole lot and can be a tremendous help to a lot of parents and a lot of single parents that just feel lost and have nowhere to go. There's a lot of statistics out there as well that there's a lot of parents that has kids on the autism spectrum that has also thought about suicide, um, taking their lives and their child life as well. So I just hope to see autism rec being again in all states around the world, having recreation centers, crisis centers, um, resources for families, and just being a not just uh, in the United States, but maybe even being worldwide, to help more families because autism spectrum is not going anywhere. These kids that are diagnosed with autism also become adults with autism because there is no cure for autism. So I'm just hoping that in 2020, that 2023, I'm at 2030, I'm sorry, that autism rec can be well known and nationwide.
Well, I believe so, and like I say, I will do everything I can to support because it's and also share with our network the important work that you're doing. So I always like to close our interviews with some words of advice, and I say you really inspired me. So regarding the work that you're doing, but I would like for
Thank
you to share with our audience some words of inspiration to people who might be might want to start their own nonprofit and also just but also just inspirational words for people like parents that might have autistic children as well. And thank you so much for your time and I look like I said, I look forward to seeing you every Saturday in Clubhouse. So we'll check in this Saturday and talk some more. But yeah, in
yeah,
closing, just offer some inspiration to anyone that might want to start their own nonprofit. And thank you so much.
no problem. So my thought, if you want to start your own nonprofit, just go for it. You may have people telling you that it may not work or that we have enough nonprofits in the world already, but you are unique and you know what you want to do with your nonprofit. So I say go for it. Don't let it stop you. If it's meant to be, it will be. And for and just make sure that you have a team behind you that support your dream, your passion, and what you're doing and your mission. Because having a team that supports everything that you're doing is very important. Because I have a team, and it's sometimes you just see me, but my team is behind the scene. Um, and if I could just give a shout out to Mike Shaw, one of my team members that's behind the scene that helped us get to where we are now. Gerald Moore and my vice president, which is also a speech therapist, and she's been my son's speech therapist for the last 8 years. And having that team to just believe in me and believe in my mission helped me push me to continue on and to do it. I was making excuses of why I can't do it or why I shouldn't start it, but having people believe in me and see my vision before me even telling them my vision just gave me that extra push. Also, for an autistic parent, um, I don't want to get emotional, but when my son was diagnosed, I was told that my son would never talk. I was told that my son would probably never walk, that my son will never have friends, that my son will not have empathy. I was told a lot of things that my son will not do or will not be able to do. But my son is 13. He was diagnosed at 2. My son is talking. He's walking. He has friends. He had a sleepover. He's social. He shows empathy. He he tells me he loves me, which I was told that you may not never hear that, but he tells me he loves me. He hugs me every day. He checks on me to make sure I'm okay. So I say just keep fighting for your son. If be your son, be your child's voice, be your child's everything, and just keep fighting. Don't let people tell you that your child won't do, because they don't have the last say. And as long as you continue to do the work and you continue to have faith, you and your child will be okay. I thought that it was like a death sentence when my child was diagnosed. And now I can say that I regret thinking it was a death sentence. And one of the reasons why I thought it was a death sentence, because after people telling me that he won't walk, he won't talk, and then seeing the behaviors that he was having in the beginning, and then being a black child as well, also just made me think that, okay, my son may not have a chance, but seeing my son and working with my son and just fighting for my son and being my son's voice, I know my son has a chance, and I know my son can be anything that he wants to be if he puts his mind to it and he fights just as hard as I'm fighting.
Well, awesome. Well, that's a wonderful way to end our interview. And like I say, I cannot thank you enough for your time. And but more important, the work that you're doing is exceptional. And we're here supporting you in every way that we can. And so just thank you, Jamila, and have a wonderful evening. Say hello
Thank
to
you.
your son from us here at KISA Media, and we'll definitely connect soon because we want to follow your nonprofit and all the amazing work you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. We appreciate you. Okay. All right, so we're going to take a little break. So thank you for tuning in, and we're going to come back in a half hour with William Ford from Maryland Matters. It's a nonprofit organization in Maryland. And so we'll have more stories to share with him. And then have CJ McKee and Laura Coleman talking about mental health. So we'll be right back in a half hour. And thank you for tuning in. It'll be at 7:30 Eastern time. So we'll be back live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all those social media platforms. I appreciate your support and really supporting our first Giving Tuesday social media-a-thon. Thank you.